talking about chaos, but we only have 2 more weeks. We have tonight we'll talk about the peace you can find in chaos, and then we have next week. And then we're going to start the love languages, and Rena's excited to tell you about that.
Yes, I'm really excited. It's a great study. As I spoke last time, if you don't understand a language, you have so many barriers in front of you. Sadly, with the pandemic, there have been a lot of abuse cases, a lot of people just losing it. But with the love language, instead of losing it, you can be using it. You can be using this time to really connect with your spouse. And what's really fascinating is, just like a car has a gas tank, we all have a love tank. It's how we receive love. And I'll be quite honest, if you're in a relationship and you're feeling really loved, your tank is up, your relationship's going to be a whole lot better. I read years ago about this couple that had been married for about 20 years. And quite honestly, the marriage was stale and almost dead. The wife was just like a robot. And the husband actually picked this book up, and it really impacted him. His pastor suggested it. And he was a actuarial guy who worked for an insurance company, so he was a numbers guy. And after reading and praying through this book, he understood what his wife's language was. And his wife, he realized, felt loved when he would praise her, which he had not done.
That's a problem.
It really is. So, being the numbers kind of guy that he was, he figured in 20 years she'd made 16,280 meals. It's kind of odd, but if you're a numbers guy, you can figure that out. So he left her a handwritten note on her pillow one day after she made the bed. He says, "Thank you, darling, for making 16,280 meals over the last 20 years. I really appreciate it. I love you." She got a couple of these notes, and it was, kind of strange, but she says, okay, something different is happening, and she started to feel a little better herself. So she left him a note: "Thank you for allowing me to stay home with our kids for 16 years and 2 months so they all could be homeschooled." And through that dialogue and process, just like a fire can be restarted, the embers stirred, their relationship got better and better and better. And over time, they learned not to take each other for granted, not to wait 20 years to show appreciation. So the love language is very, very valuable. You need to buy your own book. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it on christianbook.com. But get the book. If you want to get a head start, if you really are curious about what your language is, you can actually get a quiz at the 5lovelanguages.com/quizzes. You can see what your love language is. You can also see what your kids' love language. This applies not just to adults. And if you're single, if you're married, if you've got kids, if you have a business and you have employees, you can understand people's love languages. So it's very, very powerful. So I would really encourage you to pick up that book, go to the 5 Love Languages website, do the quiz. So anyhow, tonight we're dealing with chaos in our daily life and chaos in traumatic events. Once again, Linda wrote this book a long time ago, and it's so applicable because every single day we have chaos. And it's interesting, chaos isn't something that slipped up on God. He didn't say, oops, I forgot about Chestertown Hope Fellowship Church. I forgot about people needing work. Oh, I'm sorry about that. God knew from the beginning of time that there would be chaos because he spoke the world to existence. He creates with chaos. Out of chaos, which seems like absolute madness and randomness, comes a certain order. In John 14:27, Jesus said, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid." He was warning them, saying, you're going to be afraid, it's going to happen, things are going to go wrong in your life, but I'm there for you. Colossians 1, verse 16 through 17, "For by him all things are created," not some, but all things are created, "in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible." And believe me, chaos is both visible and the outcome is visible and invisible. "Whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him, and he is before all things, and in him all things hold together." That means chaos isn't some disconnected thing that doesn't have any outflow. A plus B will equal C, even if you don't understand it.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. I think the wonderful thing is we can't avoid chaos. Every day, we never know when we step out the door, if we end up run into a neighbor on the front steps that holds us to be later than we expected. We don't know if a telephone call will keep us from the meeting we're supposed to be at. We don't know if we'll walk out the door and there'll be a storm, so we go back in the house. I mean, life is very unpredictable. We think that we are in control, but we really aren't in control at all. And this pandemic has proven that. I guess every 100 years, here we go again, recognizing the fact that there is a God and He is greater than we are. We are not in control, and that chaos is real. And part of what these two chapters we're discussing tonight talk about are the different causes of that. Some of it is that we live in a sinful and broken world. Some of it is the mistakes and choices we make. Some of it is that God allows some things to help us in the end, to help us get on the right track. And that's what we'll be talking about tonight. So yes, chaos is real. You can't avoid it. There's no reason to resist it as if you can control it or make it go away, because you can't. So the whole purpose of this discussion we've had now for a number of weeks is helping you realize you can embrace the chaos. One simple way to embrace chaos that Reen will be mentioning a lot about chaos in light of this is that you can prepare for it, in the sense that I remember as a young mom, I would, and also because we were busy with church work and all kinds of things, I would have meeting after meeting after meeting. I'd get up in the morning, get ready for the kids, and let them go out the door. Then I'd have a 10 o'clock meeting with someone. Then I'd have a luncheon meeting with someone. Then I'd have a 2 o'clock meeting. That was my life. Until I suddenly realized everything was timed to the second, to the minute, and I didn't leave any room for chaos. When someone called on the telephone, I just didn't even want to answer it. And then if it was an emergency or they needed me, I wasn't alert and aware and ready, because I just wanted to get out the door. So into this while, and I'm embarrassed to admit how long it took me, I really began to realize that, okay, Linda, how about one major meeting in the morning, one major meeting in the afternoon, and then prepare for the fact that other interruptions will happen in my life. So chaos is real, it's there, get ready for it.
And you can truly embrace chaos. You can find peace and joy in the midst of this. One of the things I enjoy about my job, even though I haven't met a lot of people, is I get to interact with people who are suffering. One person in our church, this person's spouse is in the hospital with serious illness, for almost 2 months. And when I reach out to this person to cheer that person up, I get cheered up by their faith. So here's someone who realizes, good or bad, God's got this person in the hospital in control.
Yeah.
So, and that's the value of being able to deal with this. So chaos is a fact of daily life. You can't escape it. It's one of God's building blocks. Whether you work in an office, you're out in a sales call, you're a stay-at-home mom, you're a new pastor who can't meet with people yet, chaos invades every facet of our lives, every day, every second, every hour. It's a fact. The sooner you recognize that, the sooner you acknowledge that, the sooner you say, God, you're God and I'm not, your life gets better. There's a process you understand. But believe it or not, chaos is a necessity of life. Why is that, Linda?
Well, I'll let Reen share about that, because he's really good at talking about something he learned at a guy in prison. So you were mentioning that earlier today.
Yeah. Chaos is necessary because it's how God grows us. We develop faith, new life skills, better relationship skills, more patience, better time management skills. And it prevents boredom.
That's the thing I wanted you to share. The fact of an environment with absolutely no stimulus is not only boring, it'll kill you. So Reen will talk about that.
One of the cruelest punishments in any prison system isn't being beaten or starved. It's being placed in solitary confinement, where you have no one else to talk to, you have no connection, you don't see anyone, you don't hear anyone, there's no outside stimulus to distract you from the nonstop boredom. You will go literally nuts.
Apart from God, of course. God can take care of you in the midst of that, but that's right.
But it's a proven fact that we need change. We hate chaos. We hate the change. But we are energized because, we have a new problem to solve. We have something else to work through. predictability develops boredom. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, and they've also proven now, scientists have proven, that in some cases they have to actually interject chaos into someone's life to get things to work in a pattern motion again. Perfect example, my daughter had a particular heart issue where her heart would just start racing out of nowhere, racing, and this went on for several years, and she kept praying about it and trying to identify it, and the doctors couldn't identify it. And finally, they realized it was a problem with the rhythm of the heart, that they literally had to put her under an anesthetic and then shock her heart to cause her heart to stop this random chaotic response and go back into a pattern format. So there is, pattern comes out of chaos, and God created it that way, and He knows that. And so when He allows chaos in our life, whether it's from the outside, like the situation we've all been in for months now, or whether it's just a personal thing in our own personal lives, He will work pattern and good and peace and positive regard into our lives. And I love the fact that even in this situation, worldwide, we're beginning to see wonderful things, and I'm thankful the media is trying to highlight those things where people are reaching out to one another. They're feeding the hungry. They're helping those who are in trouble or need transportation. They're really, we're seeing the positive good things that God is doing in each of our lives to pull good out of this chaos.
That's true, because every day God uses divine interventions to redirect your thoughts, your actions, your patterns. And while you may think that blank happens, there's actually a bigger picture at work. And a simple observation is at work. I spent more than 20 years in Queen Anne's County selling real estate. And I will tell you, if you want to see a chaotic industry, it's real estate. 24/7, 365 days a year. If you want to see a house, 3 or 4 realtors will beat the door down to show it to you.
True.
And early in our marriage, Linda and I had some endemic challenges over that issue. And it comes down to a question of trust. A, God knows what our needs are. B, we have to have faith to step out. And C, some of the process in life involves training or retraining. I actually went to a
Seminar.
3-day workshop by a company called By Referral Only. And it revolutionized my whole thought process and actions in real estate. The people in sales who will rush out willy-nilly all the time, they're at the mercy of the consumers. What I learned, like a lot of top agents, was how to control your time. I said, I don't work Sundays. I don't work Saturdays except by appointment. Now there's a step of faith to do that in sales. But you know what? When people understood my process, that Sunday was for God, and Saturday was my wife, and there's 5 days that people could get out of work to go see a house. It was a revolutionary thought process.
And the thing that he realized and was taught and trained is, we do make appointments to go see the doctor. We make appointments to go see the dentist, to get our hair cut. There's so many things that we break our normal schedules to make appointments to be with someone. Why can't you do that in real estate? To be seen, to be shown a house. So it worked. His work thrived after that.
So going from,
and so did his marriage, I have to mention.
So going from a chaotic approach to a more controlled, you couldn't control everything, but it certainly helped. As a matter of fact, if you'd like to learn some of the things that I have, email me, pastorreed@ctownhope.com. I will email you 8 practical ways to handle daily chaos. See, your work life is chaotic if you allow it to be. So here's a few tips that I put in this. The first one is expect the unexpected. Things are going to change, morph, go wrong, adapt, go left, go right, all the time. If you expect the unexpected, you expect your perfect plan is going to be messed up, you're not as stressed. Hey, I expected that to happen, and guess what? Oh, you did. Second thing, plan your day and week. Use time blocking. There's 3 key elements to that. When you plan your time out, you plan your money time. If you're in sales, how many appointments are you going to have with people face to face where you might get to sell something? Secondly is your management time. What's your follow-up and support time to do that, the paperwork? The third thing is the me time. I made an appointment to be with my spouse, to be with God, or to be on a deer stand. Whoops, I mentioned that again, didn't I? But if you plan those times, And someone calls, you say, sorry, I have an appointment. If my wife and I were going on date night, that's an appointment. You know, if I lose a house sale, I lose the house sale. But I'm valuing my wife and my time.
And I just want to add to that, it's amazing how impactful that has been in our relationship, because it's nothing more wonderful for me than to look forward to those Friday nights when I know Reen has cleared his calendar, he's shut off his phone, and I matter in his life. I'm more important than the other things in his life. Even if it's for that one special afternoon every week, it makes me feel treasured, and I really appreciate it.
Another point is to plan extra driving time. If it only takes 10 minutes to get to your client, you have no margin if you only leave 10 minutes. You don't know what your car's going to have a flat tire, an accident, traffic. So if you're 30 minutes early, you know what? You can always be early. You can't be late. Another of my hard and fast rules is ACB. What's that stand for, Linda?
You go ahead and tell us.
Always carry a book.
That's right.
Look behind us. Those are hers, but I got mine downstairs. With a book of some kind, if you have to wait for a client or in traffic, if you're on Cat Island, the Bay Bridge is being worked on, you can at least make some positive use of the time. Another one is be kind to people who call as you're leaving for an appointment. Don't hurry through a phone call and say, hey, John, I'm sorry, I'm leaving for an appointment. Could I call you back this afternoon at 4 o'clock and give you full attention? So you don't want to insult people. You also want to let them know you're busy and you want to give them the full attention. Another one is be aware of divine appointments. You never know who God wants you to meet with. You never know who may need you to pray with them. You never know who just giving someone a smile could save them from committing suicide. So, I mean, be aware of divine appointments, because every day your life and your plan is not as important as God's plan. And the last thing is pray for God's supernatural peace, for ears and eyes to be aware for those appointments, and for wisdom to deal with whatever arises. We aren't that smart, but God says He will provide wisdom.
One thing that Reen asked me to share tonight too, and we're going to move into this right now, and maybe we'll discuss it more next week if you'd like for us to, let us know, is really how do you deal with traumatic, major changes in life and chaos in life. We've talked a lot about the daily, because daily is daily. It's happening all day long, and we have to know how to deal with it and deal with it. But there's also huge traumatic things that occur in our lives. How can God use those? And he asked me to share 2 stories, and I'll try to do that in the time we have left. I may only get to one and do the other one next time. One story,
and these are good stories. They're profound stories.
One story is the story that completely shaped my entire life. And that is that my parents had been married for 10 years. They lived in Washington, D.C. And they went on a trip, and in that trip, they were going across they were leaving, I don't even know where, but they were in Virginia by the time. Must have been returning from a vacation.
Lexington, Virginia.
Okay, that's where they were returning from a vacation. And along the way, in that day and time, you could pick up a hitchhiker, and they did. So my dad wanted to, my mom wasn't comfortable with it, but he went ahead and did it anyway. So this hitchhiker got in the car, entertained them for miles and miles and miles. And they stopped somewhere in West Virginia, and they had gone into a convenience store. And when he came out, he said, I think I'm going to leave you all right now. I think I'm going to decide to go to West Virginia instead of Virginia, and I'm going to take off. And he left. Okay, that's an important part of the story, and I'll tell you why. So within a matter of hours, they were headed for Virginia, ended up in Lexington. And it was a rainy day. I think it was in the evening, actually, a rainy night. And all of a sudden, they were about to crest a hill, and here is a huge Mack truck. And my father apparently went over into the shoulder, and the Mack truck guy did the same thing. And they were in a horrible, horrible accident of which they both almost died. And as a result of that, they ended up in West Virginia for several months in a hospital. And the doctor went to give my mother, she had to have blood transfusions, and he typed my mother's blood incorrectly. It was Rh negative. He typed her Rh positive, and as a result gave her that blood. She did survive. Many would not have, I understand now later. But as a result, 10 years later, when my mother, who had not been able to get pregnant, and that's a whole nother story, they tried for 20 years to get pregnant, never could, doctors told them it was impossible, and finally, just in desperation, my mother went home She had a huge job at the Pentagon. She quit her job, went home, and just prayed that God would give her a child. And as a result of that, a child was conceived. The problem was they didn't type her blood at that time either. And so the child had Rh positive blood, while she had Rh negative blood. So her body was killing off that baby the entire time. And when the baby was finally born, it was completely jaundiced, it was yellow, and it was going to die. And so doctors didn't know what to do. They'd never done a blood exchange transfusion, so they went ahead and did a blood exchange transfusion. And when they did the transfusion, the first one in the Arlington Hospital, it turns out that, remarkably, the baby survived. And so it was just, who knew how long the baby would survive, but they did everything they could for the baby to survive. And the bottom line is, I am that baby. So my entire life, as a result of that experience that happened way back there in an accident in Lexington, Virginia, my entire life has been directed by God, because my mother and father invested in my life. You have to find out who this God is who saved your life and what his plans are for your life. And I've spent my entire life seeking God, seeking to know God first, and then once I found him, wanting to live that life that he had ordained and created for me. I mean, I literally every day am very aware I could be dead. And I'm not. He gave me birth and gave me life and allowed me to live. So, Rin and I were talking about this afternoon, isn't it fascinating? That was God's plan for my parent. He used that. I don't think God brought a Mack truck and they had to wreck. No. I think he used that to impact my life for the rest of my life and my mother and father's lives. But wasn't it interesting? The hitchhiker never had that experience. He went off an entirely different path. To this day, I wonder what happened to the hitchhiker, because obviously God had an entire different plan for his life, that he used him in an entirely different way. So that is an example of a traumatic, chaotic experience that God used for good.
God intersected with Linda's parents, who had been going to church for a long time.
That's right. That's the other thing.
And as I said before, you can go to church all your life and not know Jesus. The same way you can sit in the garage and hope to become a F-150. But as a result of this, and seeing how God brought them through, they came to a saving faith in Jesus Christ.
They decided to go to church and find out why God had saved them too first, before she could tell me that. They had gone to church and began a walk with Christ themselves.
And her parents have impacted Linda, the grandchildren. It's a whole big focal point.
And it built up my mother's faith in a remarkable way, because the doctors told her never to have another child. And she totally believed in God so completely, she had a second child she was told never to have, which is my brother, and he ended up being a doctor who spent his entire life saving lives in wonderful ways. So God uses everything in remarkable ways as we live in faith and trust him. And we'll tell the other story. It'll only take a moment. The other story is that when my youngest daughter, before she was born, while I was pregnant with my youngest daughter, a doctor looked at me one week and said, oh no, he did not, that's not true. They did a complete sonogram, and the person doing the sonogram stopped in the middle, and it was so abrupt. I said, is something wrong? And she said, she had a long pause, didn't say anything. She said, well, the doctor will have to talk to you about this later. It's terrifying. So then it turns out that the doctor never talked to me about it. When I asked about it, oh, it's not important, don't worry about it. And it turns out then my child was born, my child was fine. 6 weeks into having given birth, we went to see, obviously with 6 weeks you go and bring your child to see the doctor again. He said, well, we didn't want to tell you this because we didn't want to disrupt the pregnancy, but you have Hodgkin's disease. My whole life fell apart at that moment. I mean, the thought I have a brand new baby, my third child, I'm not going to be able to raise my children, I'm not going to see them grow up. I mean, I can't even tell you how much trauma came out of that experience. And so I went home and just stopped everything to be with God. That was my response. God, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know why you've allowed this, but here I am. And he taught me so much. It transformed my life. And we'll talk about some of those things next week when we have more time. But one of the things he taught me is that I needed to stop. I needed to stop and let other people do. I had just been doing, quote unquote, great things for God, on and on and on and on. I mean, I would play the piano, I would lead the choir, I would sing in the choir, I taught Vacation Bible School, I just constantly was doing great things for God, quote unquote, in my mind. And God showed me that through the sermon of a man out of nowhere, I heard on the radio, I think, that when we do things that God has not directed us to do, we're robbing someone else of being in the will of God. That was transforming in my life, learning to say no. And that was the next thing. That the passage where it says, Jesus said to the Father, I have brought you glory on earth by completing the work that you gave me to do. Do you know how many people Jesus never touched, never taught, never saw? But he had completed the work that he was given to do. So that transformed the direction of my life. I learned to say no quickly. I learned how to say yes when God had guided me to do something. And after I had learned those lessons over a period of months, I went back to the doctor. And he said, I have some terrible news for you. And I thought, what could be more terrible than I just found out I'm dying and, I can't raise my children. And he said, you don't have Hodgkin's disease. It was a misdiagnosis. I made a mistake. So for me, that was fantastic news. But do you see how God had used that to transform my life? What was a horrible, chaotic experience.
Well, I will say this. If you're in a tough place, if you're in a painful place, be excited because God's stirring the pot in your life. One of the places that we love to travel to is a little town in North Carolina called Blowing Rock. If you've never been there, when things clear up, go to Blowing Rock.
Yeah.
There's a little park there, and there's a statue of J.E. Broyhill, or Broyhill Furniture. And it says this plaque, God forges us on the anvil of adversity for a purpose known only to him. This is how he prepares us for life. You will grow more through adversity than if you won $16 million every day for the rest of your life. You will grow more through adversity. We've been through a lot of pain. That's why we're able to minister. That's why I'm a pastor. I'm excited to be at Hope Fellowship.
And that's why we know God is faithful. He is always faithful, working some good out of everything that happens in our lives.
We in June will be married 17 years. We've had a lot of challenges, and through them, there were numerous times I said this, I don't know how, but I know who will get us through.
Amen.
And that's something you can cling to. And I'm going to pray for you right now. Father, thank you for our friends, our family, our neighbors who are watching through the wonders of Facebook. Lord God, this is a tough time for our nation, but Lord, in reality, every day is a tough day because you use it to draw us to you. So I pray for those people who are in an especially tough, painful place, that they will start saying, I don't know how, but I know who. I pray, Lord, that you will cease this coronavirus. I pray you will restore jobs and the employment around the world. And I pray that above and beyond that, there will be millions of people who come to know you as Lord and Savior as a result of this, through the sharing of our stories and our testimonies. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Don't forget the 5 love languages. If you want to get that quiz,
You better repeat it in case they can't see it, right?
5lovelanguage.com/quizzes.
Backslash, it looks like.
Yep. And if you want the 8 practical ways to handle daily chaos in your work life, email me, pastorine@ctownhope.com, and I will send it to you. So we thank you, and same time, same channel next week.
That's right. Next week we'll do our final chapter on really living in that embracement of chaos and finding peace in the midst of the chaos. Freedom of anxiety, freedom, finding rest. That's our focus really next week. How do you find internal, personal rest in the midst of chaos? So we look forward to sharing that, and then we'll move into love languages.
From one extent to the next.
Delighted to be with you all this time.